Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Anglin from TCK Media Productions, and I screw up a lot, and I want to talk about it. The concept for this video basically comes down to how often I screw up. As somebody who has worked as a video professional most of his, professional life, I've screwed up so many times. So many times. And the thing about it is, it's always something so small that can turn into something so big. I've done everything from not having my white balance totally dialed in, accidentally reverse recording, and basically having done an entire segment without actually recording what was happening. I've had hard drives failed. I've had like weird audio things that have happened from software that I was using or equipment that I was new to. Just so many things that seem so simple at the time, but just one little mistake can cause a myriad of problems. One of the most recent ones, actually, that I did, I actually tried to record a podcast with my wife, and lo and behold, after recording in Audacity, because I was using my laptop as the recording device, and I just was just like, okay, I'll just download Audacity, the open source audio software, and that should be good enough as long as I'm using good microphones and good audio interface. And because of the settings that I dialed in, the audio ended up being sped up, and basically my voice did not sound like my voice, and my wife's voice did not sound like my wife's voice. It was funny. It was actually kind of cute, but it was definitely not what I was going for. And so I went in, tried to figure out how I could fix it, couldn't really get it fixed, and then I tried to figure out, it's like, okay, why did this happen? And it turns out it has mostly to do with a sample rate issue. Basically, how I set my sample rate versus what the sample rate of the equipment I was using was, which normally when I use a program like Adobe Audition, that program's smart enough to know, like, when I put in certain things to change other things on the back end to make the audio usable, and specifically what I was trying to do. Whereas Audacity, being more open source software, it works almost like in the difference between a automatic transmission versus a manual transmission. On automatic transmission, you just hit the gas and it goes. A manual transition, you have to have it in the correct gear in order for it to do what you want it to do, and you have to make sure you're letting off the clutch at a certain rate and make sure you're, like, everything's going the way it's supposed to go. And as a result, because I wasn't paying attention to certain other details in the back end, I ended up having unusable audio, and that was super annoying. But the value of that is I now know what that mistake was and how to avoid it in the future. And that's the biggest thing about making mistakes. A mistake, no matter how big or how small, can be corrected, or you can at least learn from it. I've always had more of a learn by doing kind of learning style my entire life, and part of having a learn by doing learning style is you're going to make mistakes and learn from that mistake and how not to make that mistake again. Or if that mistake happened to do something interesting, it's just like, oh, well, now if I want to recreate that, I know specifically what to do to recreate that. I'm in this kind of like weird stage now in my career where I have to learn a lot of new things that I didn't have to know before. I'm learning new software programs. I'm learning new techniques. I'm learning more about the equipment that I need to be familiar with. And as such, I can read a bunch of, hand materials about how these things work. I can watch a bunch of videos. I can look up tutorials online and everything. But those things always fail to have it kind of stick with me. I have to actually do the thing to actually learn it. And I'll be honest, I've made a ton of mistakes literally within the last couple of months. I've had issues with OBS. I have had issues with my audio equipment. I've had issues with video recording equipment. I've, set something up a certain way and it didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do, so I've made changes to my equipment to make sure it does the thing I want to do. And all of this is basically just a building block of what I'm going to do in the future. The problem with the career path that I have chosen is the fact that it is very much designed around the idea of you have to be able to do everything. And a lot of other jobs don't necessarily have you knowing so many complicated tasks as video production does. Because in video production, I have to be a director, I have to be a director of photography, I have to be a audio engineer, I have to be a gaffer, I have to be a producer, I have to do so many different things just to create one video. And, sometimes, when you have a bigger budget and bigger budget productions, you can scale a little bit more. Like, you could have more people do those one jobs, but in the way that a lot of places are hiring video professionals, they want one person who can do everything. And as such, I have to know how to do everything. And the problem is there's always new programs, there's always new equipment, there's always new standards constantly happening in this field. And so I have no choice but to learn. And so therefore I have no choice but to make mistakes. The general lesson is make mistakes early, and basically just be better for it in the future. And that's all I have to say.